I'm always looking for the places where natives go and hang out that the tourists don't ordinarily see. I get more mail about places. There's a mention in my first book about a place called Bill's Place at 23rd and Clement out in the Richmond district, where people have been taking their kids for burgers for the last 40 years. And I absolutely, people have written to me and said, you absolutely got that one right. And I'm looking for places that are going to be around so that people from San Francisco can go, oh yeah, I've been there. And then people from out of town might say, oh, I might go check that out. The Mission District is not an area where a lot of people from out of town would necessarily go. But I've had people who've written me now who've said, you know, we came to San Francisco and we decided to check out some of the locations in your books. And I use real places. Everything in my book, if I mention a restaurant, you can go find it and you can eat there. The hotels are all real places. And I always hope I get it right. Fortunately, I have for the most part, according to the mail. So.
Well, there's a lot of, you know, it's a lot of glamour involved. It's a very European city. I remember when I was there in the 50s, it was a place where women still wore gloves and hats and went to tea at the St. Francis, and you know, it was all very elegant, the opera and all the rest. It was a very formal city, so it was really a shock when the whole Haight-Ashbury thing just suddenly blew up in the middle. It was the least likely city for hippies and beatniks, you know, to just explode in, because it was so formal and so, you know, kind of, but then again, it also had a real rough history back from the gold rush and, you know, the sorts of things that Jack London wrote about, and maybe that sophisticated overlay was not as deep as I might have thought. Maybe it was more on the surface.
Well, and San Francisco has only been in existence, you know, for 150 years, which in the scheme of things, compared with certainly European cities, but even East Coast American cities, is a relatively short period of time. And there is an aristocracy there to some degree, but people, there was no hierarchy in 1850. People came and they set up shop. And
they were a rough bunch, too.
I
mean, if you know anything about miners and, you know, all the rest, they were...
Yeah, and I think that, that sort of tolerance in many respects for people coming in, and if you're smart and you're ambitious, you can get a lot done in San Francisco, and I think that is the case to this day. And I think the fact that people, I mean, Northern California is a liberal, tolerant place by and large. It's changed to a degree, but it's different than where I grew up in the Midwest.
Very high, you know, wonderful universities, always been very rich that way. And now, of course, you've got this whole .comer thing. What was I reading about? Some new fad in restaurants about sort of like tapas. You know, instead of these giant meals and whatever, now you're getting the little, there's a name for it which escapes me, but anyway, basically tapas, you know, little 4 scallops on a lettuce leaf and all that kind of thing. But the line that caught my attention in the write-up about this new trend in eating was that it was fueled by .comers who'd lost their income but not their gourmet tastes. And you can buy these little, you know, wonderful things for like $6, $8 as opposed to the, you know, $40, $50 entree. And I thought, isn't that interesting, you know, that that you've got like this whole new foodie, because San Francisco, I think a lot of us also think of it as a big foodie city.
San Francisco is very much, recreational eating is one of our big events.
And up in Napa, I mean, the French Laundry, and before that, I can't remember what was La something or other in St. Helena. There was a marvelous Tuscan restaurant.
Oh.
La Trevina.
La Trevina, yeah.
Which I haven't yet made it to the French Laundry because I don't have time to, you know, dial. But La Trevina I've eaten at several times, and the whole wine country. I mean, God, when I was at Stanford in the like 1960, we used to wander up there and stomp on grapes, and it was all just sort of country, and there was no glamour. And now look at it.
Oh yeah, it's
huge business, and there's all this mystique involved in the, you know, viniculture and lots of money.
Yeah, it's changed quite a bit, but it's still, I mean, it is still an agricultural area. It just has magnificent wines and wonderful restaurants, and if you get a chance, go to the French Laundry, because it really is worth the
I would like to. My husband, it's one of his little dreams. Rob is the sort of person that before we went to Rio, faxed ahead and made his restaurant reservation. And we once drove all around France in order to have lunch one day at Trois Gros, in the sort of middle, near Lyon or whatever it is. He takes food really seriously.
Oh, that's
And it's
okay.
fun to do that. And California is, or San Francisco particularly, is one of those places where if you're a true foodie,
Yes.
you know, you can do that. Even like back in Chicago, what is the wonderful restaurant out in it's Woodstock, isn't it? Le Francais.
Le Francais. I
Right.
think. Well, of course, Charlie Trotter's downtown.
That too.
Another grad of New Trier High School.
Absolutely so. So, you know, there are a lot of cities that are now. Phoenix has improved a lot, but I remember years ago my uncle said to me, you can get lots of good meals in Phoenix, but nothing memorable.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's changed. We now have, we're getting very California in terms of ethnicity and in terms of, you know, glamour chefs, celebrity chefs, and glamorous spots, some of whom have come over here. One memorably, Wolfgang Puck, who came over here and folded up, you know, really literally in the middle of the night, you know, went away from Arizona, Biltmore back to LA, so it didn't work for him. But
Yeah. There's a restaurant in San Francisco still, you know, still thriving. I mean, the Post Trio is still rolling along. And with San Francisco, it is unusual. It is a tremendous food town. It's a highly educated populace. It was somewhere it was rated as the town or the metropolitan area where you know, people read the most, or one of the most highly literate areas in the country. And I think as a result, you see a lot of readers and a lot of writers.
There's a really world-class collection of bookstores there. Kepler's in Menlo Park, Book Passage in Corte Madera, clean, well-lighted place for books.
Yes.
And Lawrence Ferlinghetti's place.
City Lights.
Thank you. City Lights, which has also started to republish books. So yeah, it's always been. But then I remember North Beach, you know, which was all about, you know, Sex on Parade and you know, sort of early Hooters,
Yep.
whatever, or the Folie Bergère kind of taken to California. And now I remember there are a whole bunch of boutique breweries, not just wine, but it seemed to me last time I was there were a number of really boutique beer kinds of places. Maybe one in North Beach, now that I think about it.
There is one in North Beach, and our first Hooters did open in San Francisco at the Wharf not long ago. I don't actually know anybody who has been there, but we're curious to see how it will.
Sure. I mean, you could go over to Sausalito. You used to be able to eat at Ondine. In fact, Sally Stanford, she was a madam. She had nothing to do with the university, but she was a famous madam.
Yes.
Her restaurant, at least in the 50s, was still going strong. I don't know if it's still there or not.
Yeah, the Valhalla in Sausalito has changed iterations a number of times, but it is now, I think, has been rechristened the Valhalla again, but it's run by a different group because Sally Stanford died, you know, a number of years ago.
Well, I guess.
Yeah. But I mean, she was a madam who became the mayor of Sausalito and ran a very successful restaurant. So.
That's the kind of thing that would make an interesting book. So have you thought, you know, about incorporating something like, I mean, you haven't done a restaurant book. There are all kinds of, or is that just a cliche in San Francisco to write about some sort of food thing?
Well, you know,
or you just like sprinkling it in the books?
I sprinkle it in the books, and I'm always looking, you know, I'm always looking for places, for new places, and places that'll be in business, you know, a few years down the road, so my books won't look terribly dated. But I'm also always looking for restaurants where that are sort of traditional, historic San Francisco places, not necessarily where the foodies go, but where people have gone for any number of years. Bill's Place was one of them. I was just at a restaurant last week. I was doing a book event in the Laurel Heights area of San Francisco, and there's a place called Ms. Brown's, and I don't know if you were ever there.
Don't think so.
But it looks like it's marvelous. I mean, the food is okay for what it is. They don't try to do anything fancy, but it looks like it was transported directly from the 1950s and just placed right at the top of California Street. And I talked to the new waitress there for a few minutes. She had only been there for 28 years. So the place has been there for at least 50 that they could think of, and that place will find its way into one of my stories one of these days.
Even Fisherman's Wharf, and I don't know if Tarantino's is still around.
Yes, it is.
Green Goddess salad dressing, I'm here to tell you.
Yep.
It was invented at Tarantino's.
Yep.
And then there was a while with the DiMaggio brothers, you know, the baseball guys had a restaurant down on the wharf, but I don't know if that one's still going on or not.
No, the DiMaggio, I've eaten at the DiMaggio's place, but that was taken over a number of years ago by, I think it's a Tony Roma's or something now, which is...
So sports are another thing you could always, you know, sort of see. You'll never run out of things to write about.